Hey guys, my name is Moshpiti, and I've got a guide for Diablo 3 Support Barbarians. Now this is made for console specifically, but I'm sure it can be used on PC as well. First I'm going to show you all the pieces, all the skills I'm using, and after that I'm going to explain how they synergize the actual mechanics of my setup. Alright, so first we are using 2 pieces of Horde of the 90 Savages and 3 pieces of Wrath of the Wastes. It doesn't matter which piece goes where. In my case, it was feet and helmet of the Savages and everything else was Wastes. But it doesn't really matter which part goes where. Just take the best ones you get. The idea is to get 2 pieces of 90 Savages, 3 pieces of Wastes, wherever they're located. And then we're going to use Ring of Royal Grandeur to wrap up the Waste set into its 4-piece bonus. For belt, I'm using Pride of Cassius. It's a mighty belt, and in the cube I'm using Chilanix Chain, which is another mighty belt. So what you're going to do is basically look for a mighty belt. Whichever you get better, be it the Pride of Cassius or be it the Chilanix Chain, wear that and put that one in the cube. For weapons, we're using the Bull Kathos Oath weapon set, doesn't matter which one goes where. For shoulders, I'm using Mantle of Channeling, and this is just for toughness. For necklace, right, Flavor of Time. Always have Flavor of Time. If you get an Conduit Pylon in a Rift, you're going to have double time on that. It's just going to be massive damage for your group. Now the wrist, I'm using Strong Arm Bracers. You can use Nemesis Bracers. I know a lot of support builds tend to use Nemesis Bracers exclusively. I prefer Strong Arm Bracers. I feel like if my group is struggling to kill elites already, it's not going to be beneficial to have even more elites rather than have extra damage. And if I'm not the sole support character in there, we're going to have a support Demon Hunter, for instance, then they can have names and we'll just let them pop the pylons for us. It doesn't matter who picks the pylon, everyone who's wearing Flavor of Time still gets the bonus. So even though we let the Demon Hunter pick up the pylons with their Nemesis Bracers, we're still also going to benefit from the Flavor of Time, even though we're not the one touching the pylons, so don't worry about that. For the rings, we're going to use Band of Might and Oculus Ring. Oculus Ring is standard for every support build. Band of Might, I'm pretty sure is like standard fare for every support barbarian. And for the skills, we are using Ignore Pain Mob Rule. Now this is super important. This is going to give crowd control immunity and some toughness for everyone. You absolutely must use this. And I'm going to show you how to get 100% uptime on this. I've seen a lot of people struggle with that. Your Ignore Pain goes down, so does your damage leaders. Now people are dying left and right. You're failing the rift, everything's going awfully wrong. I'm going to show you how to get this to 100% uptime so that everyone is crowd control immune non-stop. No worries about frozen, jailers, fears, nothing like that. It's going to be great. Whirlwind, Hurricane, just basically helps you pull things in. We're also going to be using the Sanctified Whirlwind. This synergizes really well with it, because the Sanctified Whirlwind, while it pulls enemies and keeps them there, like it keeps pulling enemies within 25 yards, it's just 25 yards. But the Whirlwind Hurricane has a 35-yard pull. So when something somehow manages to slip past your pull, let's say the mob is getting a little too big to control, for instance, for your Sanctified pull, the 35 yards is actually going to yank them right at your feet. And that's going to allow you to just keep more and more enemies piled up and crowd controlled in your permanent pull with the Sanctified Whirlwind. Threatening Shout, Falter, enemies take 25% increased damage for 6 seconds. We're basically spamming this as soon as it's up, and that's just going to help your group kill everything. Warcry, Veteran's Warnings, massive toughness buff. At 30%, this is already going to make a massive difference for just the survivability of your teammates. Furious Charge. Now, normally I would actually use Ground Stomp, Wrenching Smash. I've made this build, this specific support barbarian, a couple of seasons ago. But this time we have this super powered whirlwind build, so I'm going to actually use Merciless Assault instead, or rather Furious Charge, Merciless Assault. It gives you cooldown reduction when you push through enemies, which means you can basically spam it through mobs. And the reason I use Furious Charge is so once I have a massive mosh pit of enemies, I can use the Furious Charge to go through them and go grab even more enemies or grab a pylon or grab whatever I need without moving the mob with me if I'm using Whirlwind. Because Whirlwind is going to allow you to move through enemies, but this season it's also going to pull the enemies with you, unfortunately, so we use Furious Charge to get out of those piles. And finally, Rend, Mutilate. Affected enemies are chilled and take 10% increased damage from all sources. Just more damage. There's no way more damage is not good. But also, if you're the solo support, let's say you have 3 damage dealers and a ZBarb, the ZBarb normally would just give toughness. I think it's very important to also give damage for your group. Same reason as I'm using the Strong Embracers, because that's just going to make everybody's life easier. And for passives, I'm using Nerves of Steel, basically your second life. Inspiring Presence just gives everybody maximum life per second. Superstition, reduce all non-physical damage by 20%. And Relentless, so once we go to 35% life, remember this Nerves of Steel procs at 15. But even before then, we're going to have another damage reduction at 50%, of 50% at 35% life. We don't need tons of attack speed, we don't need tons of life per hit. We don't need none of that because the Bulkathos set gives us 45% increased attack speed and movement speed when we were whirlwinding rather. And obviously with the Amethyst, we're going to get 28,000 life per hit from both weapons. With 45% increased attack speed, we are just like healing any damage that comes in before they can even stack more damage on top of it. Like, it's going to be impossible to use potions as long as you're spinning, for instance, because you're always at full health. Even though you take damage, you just go back to full health before you can even use a potion. So if you need to use, say, the bottomless potion of Kool-Aid, you actually have to stop spinning for a bit so that you can lose enough health to use your potion so you can break down the waters. That's just something to keep in mind. Heal of the Savages. Now, the 2 set piece is going to give you double the effectiveness of shouts. And what that means is whereas this gives 25%, now it's 50. 30%, now it's 60. And just to demonstrate that, we're going to use the shout, and we're going to go check our dodge chance. And remember that it's supposed to be 30%, but it's up to 60. So it does actually apply to all the shouts. Now, everybody's going to have 60% dodge chance. That's astronomical toughness for your group. So you definitely want to have the 2 piece of the Savages. Now, Tacet of the Wastes, Wrath of the Waste set, increase the damage per second of Rend and increase its duration to 15 seconds. Now, that's primarily why I want to use this. Is obviously because the Rend is going to give us 10%, but it's only going to last 5 seconds. We're going to keep applying this every 5 seconds. That's going to get pretty jarring in a Rift because you have to stop spinning to do that. At 15 seconds, that's much more lenient. Now you're just like applying it every 15 seconds or more often if you want. But it gives you more wiggle room. It gives you more room with lag, especially. And that's pretty important because you could be losing quite a bit of frames. The 4-piece set gives you 50% damage reduction. It also gives you Rend triple damage, but I mean, we're not really dealing damage, so it doesn't matter. We also go for Esoteric Alteration for legendary gems. This is going to give me even more non-physical damage reduction. And as I go to 50% life, it's going to give me even more non-physical damage reduction, or elemental resistance rather. And we also take the Sanctified Whirlwind. It's completely bonkers. As the enemies are being crowd controlled and pulled into you over and over and over, they don't build crowd control resistance. For whatever reason, it doesn't actually affect them in that way. And while they're being pulled over and over, they can't actually attack either. So you're going to give like just astronomical, again, just tremendous survivability for your team by just using this build. Or this ability, rather. We're going to go for 8% cooldown on literally everything. The Band of Might, Oculus Ring, everything. Everything that can roll. Gloves, 8%. Shoulders, 8%. Necklace goes up to 8%. The weapons go up to 10%. You want maximum cooldown on literally everything. We're gunning for 57% cooldown. That's not enough to keep your Ignore Pain mob rule up 24/7. And again, we really do need that to be up 24/7 just so that everybody gets their life. But it is enough cooldown to keep your movement speed buff from the Warcry 24/7. So as you're going through a rift with your group, you're going to have non-stop movement speed buffs. That's very nice. So how do we keep up the Ignore Pain 24/7? Well, we go with the Gokok of Swiftness. Now this one, you're good at level 25. You can get it up to level 150. That's going to give you even more toughness as it gives you more dodge chance. But at level 25, it gives you 1% cooldown reduction per stack of swiftness. And that goes up to 15 stacks. That's 15% extra cooldown. And once you have 15 stacks of this, which is basically a split second as soon as you're hitting enemies with your whirlwind, now you have enough cooldown to keep all of your buffs and abilities and everything up 24/7. That means Ignore Pain Mob Rule is up 24/7. No one is ever gonna get frozen as long as they stay within range of your Ignore Pain. Of course, finally we go with Efficacious Toxin. This is just really standard fare for all support builds. Try to bind your buttons in a way where the ones that need to be up all the time are comfortable to hold. So in my case, I go with Ignore Pain on A and Threatening Shout on X. That means when I lay my hand on the controller, I'm literally holding down A and X with my thumb. Very light pressure. I'm just like literally resting my hand there and holding them down. And I'm holding my index finger on the whirlwind, which is on my right trigger. Now I have the Warcry on Y, because you don't really need to spam that, especially if you're in a fight. Nobody needs movement speed while they're already like attacking a group of enemies that's going to stay on the screen for a while. I just have that on Y, I press it whenever, and I have the rend on the right bumper, right above my trigger, so I just move my index finger up a little bit, just to apply rend every 15 seconds or so. Again, I'm holding down A and X, and once in a while I may press Y to give us some movement speed. And only when I'm in a pile and I need to move away, that's when I'm going to hold B. Now you want to hold B on, or hold whatever you have Furious Charge bound on console, because otherwise it's going to target the nearest enemy, or whatever enemy you're looking at, and going to use the Furious Charge on that. On PC, they can just click wherever they want to go, and the Furious Charge is going to go there. But on console, you want to hold the button so that you can go through the enemies. And if you hold the button, it's going to use the Furious Charge for as long distance as it can. In the cube, I'm also using obviously Ring of Grandeur to wrap up the 4-piece for the wastes, and I'm using the Executioner to snipe off any low health enemies. Say the Rift Guardian, for instance, drops to 10 health, just instantly dies. Can't go wrong with that. You truly do not need optimal gear. You don't need all ancients. You don't need all augments. You don't need min-maxed stats. So I hope this build really helps you guys get into some of that sweet support barbarian action. I'm actually going to show in an FLM Rift, just real quick, the very basic like rule of thumb how you play this. I'm holding A and X, literally holding right trigger A and X. I'm piling up enemies. Let's say we have a wizard doing damage. Found a yellow, make a pile, use rend. Now everything takes 10% extra damage. You can use a charge if you need to have your Band of Might up. Again, Band of Might lasts about 8 seconds. So every 8 seconds, if you're taking a lot of damage, use Band of Might to keep that up. But you have so much toughness, to be frank, that you might not actually need it at all. And again, if you have a damage dealer here, they can just absolutely go chew through this mob, and every 15 seconds we keep them nice and bloody. And again, Furious Charge, you have this pack here. See, when I move, I'm bringing the pack with me, and I don't want to do that if my damage dealer has a nice nuke there. I was going to use the Furious Charge, go right through them. Now I can find another pack, I can bring them to the big one, and I've got even more mobs here, depending on the needs of your group. Sometimes they might want actually less stuff on the screen if their ability is really low or the damage is really low. And others might need even more, so if there's a Necromancer in there. And again, use Furious Charge, get out of there, bring even more stuff in. So really fun setup, really low maintenance. Like, I'm literally holding A, X, and right trigger, and it basically plays itself. And again, I hope this comes in handy, useful, whatever, for anyone, you know. Let me know in the comments if you've got any criticism, any ideas, any suggestions. And actually let me know if it actually helped you. Let me know what you think of the build, if you actually tried it yourself. And I'm hopefully going to make more guides going forward, and I'll see you next time.